April 29th, 1945. Dawn over the Bavarian forest, just south of Dachau. A cold mist clings to the pine needles, carrying the faint, unmistakable stench of death that has soaked into the earth for years. American boots crunch along the railway siding, where a train of open boxcars still stands, doors ajar. The cargo inside no longer human in the way the world once understood the word. A young lieutenant from the 42nd Infantry Division lowers his Thompson submachine gun, not in threat, but in disbelief. 10 yards away, 3 SS Hauptsturmführers in coal scuttle helmets and immaculate greatcoats stand motionless, hands clasped behind their backs, watching. A GI with mud-caked boots and a 3-day beard pulls a crumpled pack of Lucky Strikes from his breast pocket. He taps out 5 cigarettes, places one between his own cracked lips, then walks slowly toward the skeletal figures huddled against the barbed wire. The prisoners do not move at first. They have forgotten how hope feels. The soldier lights his own cigarette, draws deeply, then offers the burning match to the first prisoner. A trembling hand, bones wrapped in translucent skin, reaches out. The match flares. A second prisoner, then a third, accept the light. Smoke rises in thin blue ribbons against the gray morning. The SS officers do not speak. Their breath fogs in perfect unison, disciplined even now. They had been told the Americans were gangsters, subhumans driven by Jewish gold, that their soldiers would bayonet prisoners and burn villages as the Red Army did in the East. Instead, they watch enlisted men, boys from Ohio and Brooklyn and the Texas Panhandle, share the last of their ration cigarettes with men who weigh less than the packs on their backs. This moment did not happen in isolation. For 12 years, the Reich had built its ideology on contempt for pity. Mercy was weakness, generosity a Jewish trick. The 1935 Nuremberg Laws, the 1938 Kristallnacht Orders, the 1941 Commissar Order, every regulation and every whispered barracks joke had reinforced the same lesson: the strong take, the weak disappear. By the spring of 1945, the Luftwaffe was grounded for lack of fuel. The cities were rubble, yet the doctrine remained intact. The SS still believed their racial superiority would manifest itself even in defeat, that the Americans would reveal their barbarism the moment the cameras turned away. They were wrong. Official U.S. Army records of the 42nd and 45th Infantry Divisions note that within hours of liberation, American soldiers were distributing 48,000 K-ration biscuits, 12,000 cans of Spam, and every cigarette they carried. Medical detachment reports list 2,341 prisoners too weak to swallow solid food. Medics melted chocolate bars in canteen cups to spoon-feed them like infants. One sergeant wrote in his diary that night, "Gave my last pack to a Pole who couldn't have been more than 90 pounds. He cried when he tasted the tobacco. I cried when he tried to kiss my hand." The cigarette itself becomes the quiet symbol, recurring again and again in photographs and recollections. It is not the weapon that won the war, yet it carried more weight than any P-51 or Sherman tank. A single Lucky Strike wrapped in green and white democracy passed from an American private to a man who had not tasted freedom in 6 years. The smoke curled upward, indifferent to rank, indifferent to the black uniforms standing 10 paces away. Each glowing ember was a small, undeniable proof that the Reich's entire anthropology had been a lie. Something broke in the SS officers that morning. Survivors later remembered the youngest Hauptsturmführer, a man no older than 30, removing his gloves with deliberate slowness, as though the leather had suddenly become too heavy. Another stared at the ground, lips moving without sound, repeating a phrase no one could hear. The camp commandant SS Obersturmbannführer Eduard Weiter had fled the night before. Those who remained had no orders left to give. For the first time in their adult lives, the ideology that had justified every atrocity offered no instruction for what they were seeing. In the weeks that followed, Allied interrogators noted a peculiar lethargy in many captured SS officers. They answered questions accurately, but without passion, as if the machinery of hatred had simply run out of fuel. One Obersturmführer, asked why he had not attempted escape, replied softly, "Where would I go that a cigarette has not already been?" The sentence was logged without comment. Years later, historians would argue about turning points: Stalingrad, D-Day, the Bulge. Yet for thousands who walked out of Dachau that spring, the war ended not with an artillery barrage, but with the soft click of a Zippo lighter and the smell of Virginia tobacco on a stranger's breath. The cigarette, that smallest unit of American abundance, traveled farther than any division. It crossed the wire, crossed the language barrier, crossed the chasm the Reich had spent a decade digging between human beings. In its brief glow, it revealed what all the propaganda in Berlin could never extinguish: that generosity is not weakness, that decency is not surrender, that a single shared light can shame an entire empire into silence. And so, beneath a cold Bavarian sky, the master race stood mute while its victims learned again how to inhale freedom, one borrowed cigarette at a time. The smoke rose and dispersed, carrying with it the last pretense of the thousand-year Reich, until nothing remained but ash and the faint, lingering scent of something the Germans had been taught did not exist: common humanity.